which my Malamute loved no end. And, but I believe in recognizing people because in Rotary that's a very important job of what we do. So the call to action is important. Now let me just say something else that Mike hasn't asked me to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. You, in effect, next year, are Mike's Rotary Club. You're the president of your club. You did not ask for the members in your club. You've inherited them. They are there when you take office on July 1. That's your club. You hope and pray that most of them will get on board and will support you in your goals and objectives. Well, in the same manner, you are Mike's club. And he didn't ask for you. He inherited you. I know you didn't ask for him either. You inherited each other. And he is hoping and praying that you will get on board and support him. I remember when I made my governor's visits out in Silicon Valley, a club president, Jim Walker, said to me, "Governor Rick, what can my Rotary Club do to help you this year achieve your goals?" I could have kissed that guy. Of course, that was before the gay movement, so I didn't kiss him in San Francisco. But I thought, this is the kind of club president I really, really like, because he wanted to help me. And Mike is hoping you will help him, because Rotary asks big things of him, and it's a big job. So just as you're asking your members to support you, I'm asking you to support your governor. If he's putting on a district conference next year, as every governor is asked to do, get your members to come. Set a goal of 10 couples, 12 couples, and make it a club service assignment. Every new member of the club who hasn't been in Rotary more than 2 or 3 years ought to be assigned to be a club delegate to the district conference, or an assistant delegate. And the club might want to subsidize some of his fees or her fees to attend the conference to whatever degree could be done, so that they would come and appreciate what's going on at the district conference. But set these goals and support the governor just as you hope your members will support you. Well, that's an unsolicited commercial, but I'm here and I've got the podium, so I took command.
All right, let's take some questions from the audience. Something you'd like to ask Rick King. He's past president of Rotary International. Mike Williams.
When you met Richard Burton, he said he was trying to get his role correct. Did he mention anything like trying to get his marriages correct?
No.
Allow me to repeat the question for the video. The question was when Mr. King met Richard Burton, and then he kept saying he was trying to get it right for the next time. The question is, does that apply to his marriages as well? Sir?
No. Even though I was a divorce lawyer, I didn't want to go into his marriages. I was just interested in his presentation on stage.
Other questions about the art of presentation, how to run a meeting, the use of humor, confidence, nerves, something about Mr. King's speech last night, perhaps something about your own Rotary arc. You're all looking, and we told you yesterday that successful presidents become successful AGs, successful AGs become successful district governors, and some district governors get to be president of Rotary. Collier.
You touched on it a little bit as far as when you make the same speech over and over again, but if you could go a little bit more, what motivates you to make it sound like it's the first time you've ever given it? Because last night, I'll tell you, I was inspired and I was motivated, and it seemed like that was the first time you presented.
So the question is, Collier's taken by the fact Mr. King gives the same speech, give or take, a lot, but he says that it was like the first time he had ever heard it, and the question is, how'd you do that?
Because I focus on you. I'm interested in trying to motivate you, and you're not the same audience that I had the night before, or the night before that. You are you. And I don't know what your club is, but I'm trying to reach you. And I'm trying, and that's every time I was in front of the jury or any time I make a speech. And I have 8 or 9 major themes. The pet speech is just one of them, for pets, of course. But I'm always trying to reach the audience. I'm always trying to achieve the objective of my speech. Sometimes I give a speech after dinner, which is just purely entertainment. It's just comedy and it's just entertainment. And that's all I'm trying to do, and that's all they wanted me to do. But most of the time when I talk to pets, I'm trying to motivate and inspire those presidents. And I don't know whether you've ever heard me before, but I'm going to assume you haven't. And therefore, I say, how am I going to reach you? Because you're new and you're different, and just because I've done the speech before doesn't mean that it comes the way that way to you. So I've always trying to influence the president of the club to do a better job.
Great. A couple more questions. Let's go here, sir.
Just a quick one. Is the speech of last night or one of the predecessor versions available in video somewhere?
Yes, in
YouTube or
fact,
something?
Mr. King's speech last year has been available all year at the Great Lakes Rotary Peds website.
Okay,
And
good.
this is a lesson in marketing for all of us, isn't it? That here's this great speaker that we could have used to promote the event this year, and so few of you know about it. So we need to create good content from good content, and then ride the flag up the pole so that we can get more enthusiasm for next year. I saw some questions over here. Yes, sir.
How do you focus when you're speaking to make the audience watch you as opposed to, I've been in a church and a pastor gave his presentation, but I swear he was looking at the back wall watching a video and he wasn't really connecting with the audience. So how do you connect? Because I have a tendency to focus on a couple of individuals and I seem to keep going back to them. How do you span the room to make everybody feel connected?
So if I may, another question about connection. How does a good speaker connect with the audience and not seem distracted? I think we're talking about things like we've heard about the V in public speaking. How do you share that eye contact with everybody in the room, especially if there are 400 plus people in the room like there were last night?
I make it a point of looking left to right to left all night long. I make it a point of doing that. And I always focus on the audience. In other words, I don't know whether that pastor was thinking of the audience focusing on him, but I don't believe in this idea of focusing on something in the back of the room and just glaring there. I like to reach eye contact. As a matter of fact, in most of my audiences, I ask that the lighting be not totally dark, that it be at least a little bit lit so that I can see their faces, because I like to know whether or not I'm getting through to them. And that's the way it was in front of juries. You have to know whether you're reaching the audience, otherwise you're just wasting your time. So if you're looking at a wall someplace, it's hard to know. So I always look right to left, left to right, span the room. Now obviously you can't see everybody with 400, 500 people in the audience. At the Dallas Pets there were 1,000. It's a big auditorium and you can't do that. But you can span the audience and you can get a general sense of whether or not you've got them. Another thing I always do is make sure that the waiters have gone from the room before I get up to speak. Yeah. Because if they're clanging dishes around, it's hard to get that moment. And I don't want to do that. I want undivided attention on what I'm trying to say.
Excellent. We have a question over here. Yes, Ann.
How do you get the doubters out of your head? Because there's typically somebody who's not a fan when you're president of the club.
The question, if I may, the question is how do you get the doubters out of your head? There's always somebody in the room who's cynical, a person who's harder to win over. How do you cope with the fact that those people are inevitably in the audience?
I can't imagine there were any doubters in the audience. And actually, that's part of my answer. I ignore the doubters. I always have. There are always doubters, to be sure. Did you hear my story about Luigi last night? Yeah. I don't want to repeat it here because of the time. But there's always doubters, and in every Rotary club there'll be 2 or 3 people that are not going to like. I remember when I wanted to make my club good in the Rotary Foundation. We had not a single Paul Harris fellow in the club. And this was a long time ago. And I thought, well, if I'm going to be the president, I've got to set an example. So when the past district governor came, who was foundation chairman of the district, came and asked for contributions, I took out my check for $1,000 in front of the club and handed it to the PDG. And Frank O'Rear, a high school principal, objected. He said, you're just playing on your ego. We all know you're a successful lawyer, and just because you've got the money doesn't mean the rest of us do, and on and on and on and on and on. You're just bragging. And I was hurt by it, and the district governor called me up and he said, Rick, this guy wants to quit the club if you don't quit, because he says you're embarrassing him. And I said, Governor, I'm not embarrassing him. I didn't ask him to contribute $1,000. I simply showed the club that I was willing to do it because I'm the leader of the club. And if you want his resignation, you can have it. If you want mine, you can have it. The governor backed away right quickly and said, we don't want your resignation. And that guy quit the club. He quit the club. But at the end of the year, we had 30 more new members than we had when we began. And we got the trophy for best club in the district, best club in Rotary Foundation giving, best membership increase. And I got the trophy as best club in the district. And even the naysayers who were left in the club were always right there at the first. Rick, congratulations, we did it.
So it's interesting, I get asked the same question a lot too. How do you handle those types of people in the audience? And I can tell you on a day that there are 100 people in my audience, if 98 of the people liked what I did, I can sleep okay that night. You know, 2 people. And there's always 2 people. You can they telegraph who they are. Sometimes I'll start, Rick, I say, this will be the best program you've seen in a long time, and 2 people out of the 100 that cross their arms like this and say, I don't like him already. You know, it's that obvious who they are. One more, let's move it around, we'll come right back to you, sir. Yes, please.
When you're constructing a speech, do you build it around ideas that you know you'll remember, or do you write your speech and then try to remember it?
I try to buy it around ideas. Oh, I'm sorry, you want to repeat the question?
Or you can.
She asked how you construct the speech, whether it's ideas you already have or whether they're new ideas. I try to talk about something that I'm familiar with because it's natural and it's easy. I don't try to talk about some subject that I'm not familiar with. I was asked recently to give a speech to 1,000 engineers at NASA in Southern California. This was a professional speaking commitment, nothing to do with Rotary. And I said, what do you want me to talk about? Because I'm not going to talk about engineering of spaceships to Mars, because I know nothing about them. So he said, Mr. King, I've heard your speech, just talk about leadership, which is a different speech than I gave last night, but similar. And I said, I can do that. That I can do because I know something about the subject of leadership. Not because I'm such a great leader, but because I've studied it all my life. And I've got a whole library on books on leadership. And I've read them, and I've tried to use them and put them into practice. So if you talk about something that you know, it's much easier and you're much more relaxed. And I try to construct my ideas around something that I already know. So in last night's speech, for instance, I said, what do I feel about Rotary? What do I know? And that's how I got the idea of conviction, vision, and commitment. Because in my own life, I've tried to apply those 3 principles to everything I do in Rotary service. And for the most part, it has worked.
We have time for one more question. We're going to take you back to California with this question, and I'll tell you why in just a second. And then we'll turn it back over to Karen. I want to thank District Governor Henry Dotson for looking after Rick King and making sure he came to our program today. A round of applause for Henry, please. So last summer, Rick, we had a fundraiser in District 6380, and the Chatham-Kent clubs got together, primarily through the efforts of the Chatham Club and this gentleman, Sparky Leonard, and they hosted a Beach Boys concert from California that netted $100,000 for hospice.
Whoa!
And that's the gentleman who's going to ask the last question, Sparky Leonard.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Governor-elect. Mr. King, my question is simply, during my presidential year, I'm coming in as an AG next year, but during my presidential year, I wanted to find out more about my club because I was relatively new to the area. I'd been a member of different areas before. So one of the questions I would ask at every meeting to a senior member and then each member in the club, because we were about 52 members, and as the calendar goes, it kind of worked out real nice. Everybody got a shot to tell me why and how they joined Rotary and what made them stay. Why did you stay? You've been a great ambassador of Rotary. We should all know that you've serviced Rotary very well. But what brought you into Rotary? Why did you come to Rotary? And when was that moment that said, what hooked you? Why did you stay?
So can you all hear the question? The question is, what brought you to Rotary? What made you stay? It's something that we all wrestle with at the club level with members.
When I was a young man, I was under contract with the Howard Hughes Hotels in Las Vegas. And I was singing 3 shows a night in Las Vegas. And I was also building my law practice. And I was a single practitioner as a young lawyer. And I would fly every day from the Oakland, California airport to Las Vegas. And I'd land there at 7 o'clock in the evening. I'd go to my room at the Desert Inn, where they told me Howard Hughes lived in the penthouse. I never met him that I know of. But in any event, they told me he was up there. and that he liked my singing. So I would go out and have a corned beef sandwich and a Pepsi-Cola. That was my dinner. And then at 11 o'clock at night, Red Blount would blow his trumpet and say, here he is from San Francisco, the baritone barrister, better known as the singing sewer. I would sing songs at 11 o'clock at night, one at 1 in the morning, and another show at 4 in the morning. And of course, the 4 a.m. show was always for the losers. And it's nice to see a couple of you guys I haven't seen for a while. 5 a.m. I was done. I'd go to my room, have another corned beef sandwich, another Pepsi-Cola, sleep for 3 or 4 hours. 11 o'clock in the morning, I'd be on a jet back to the Oakland, California airport, and at 12:15 I was in my office suing. And I was singing all night and suing all day. I was young, like Mike, and I was dating all of the girls. I was doing a lot of church work. And I was busy with a lot of organizations. And a man who I really respected came to my office, an educator, and he said, Rick, I'd like you to visit the Rotary Club. And I thought, this guy's got a hole in his head. He doesn't know I don't sleep now. Because that was a daily commute, six days at a time, 1 month at a time, off on Monday nights. And so it was a tough commute for me, but when you're in your 20s, you think you're going to live forever. I didn't really want to do it, but he was persistent. And he came back very gently, 2 or 3 times, and he said, I'd like you to visit the Rotary Club. And finally I thought, okay, because I like him and respect him and admire him, and because I finally have to get rid of him, I will go and visit the Rotary Club. This little Rotary Club said, we tried to find a good lawyer, we couldn't find one, so we hope you'll join. And they said, Rick, we know you're a very busy guy. If you'll just get here once every 3 months, we'll give you a perfect attendance pin at the end of the year. And I thought, once every 3 months, I can handle that. And I thought I can do that. So I joined. I said, okay, I'll join. And they said, here's your dues, please pay it today, we need the money. That was my touching induction into Rotary. 7 years, I got there when I got there. I didn't pay much attention to it. It was a low priority in my scheme of things. One day I'm in my bathroom, I think I've told you the story, and Mike Crewley bangs on the door and says, you're the president-elect, congratulations. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to try to do it right, because half the club were clients of mine, and I didn't want them to think that their president was sloppy, therefore their lawyer was sloppy. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to give this a year of my life, I'm going to see what can be done with my leadership skills. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to develop them. So I put all the guys in my club in my office. We only had 8 or 10 coming. And I said, we're going to be the best club in the district this year. And Norm Weber, who had been our treasurer for years, big heavyset fellow, literally fell out of the chair on the floor. And he said, Rick, you're not running for president of the United States. You don't have to take this too seriously. And I said, that's been the trouble. The club hasn't taken it too seriously. Because I'd gone to the district assembly, first district assembly I'd ever gone to. And here were Rotary Club presidents standing up and reporting to the governor their goals and objectives for the year. And I thought, my gosh, some of these people take this Rotary stuff seriously. And I didn't have a goal or objective at all in mind at that point. And I know they'd been trying to pull our charter because we were a bankrupt club. And I said to the governor, at the end of the year, we're either going to be a good Rotary Club or I'm going to hand you our charter, because I'm not going to waste a year of my time. And I told that to the members of the club. And I said, we're either going to get on board and be a Rotary Club or we're going to give it up, one or the other, because it's a waste of our time. So we went to work. And at the end of the year, I don't know how it is in your club, but in my club, they always kick the president out with a lot of fanfare. I don't think we ever actually install the president, but we kick him out with a lot of fanfare. And they tried me for treason, because I was a lawyer, against the Rotary Club, and they had a noose hanging down from the ceiling. They brought my mother in to testify against me. They brought my dog Rex in, put a bow tie on him to bark.